It doesn't want to go live. Why? Yeah, okay. Hello and welcome, Rise of Kingdom Warriors. So, in today's episode, we are interviewing one of our biggest whales in 57. If and I can say he's the biggest whale in the game right now, and in our server 57. This player is Sed. He's currently set as his power currently sitting at 131 million. He has 1.185 billion kill points, and his breakdown for the kills is just like this: the 21.5 million T5, 72.379 million kills of T4. This is like astonishing amount of T4 kills, and his T1, T2, and T3 is just like low compared to the other. So, and if we view the commander page, he has the set like he has his Ragnar as Alexander the Great, and his tax officer as Joan of Arc, drill master as Charles Martel, his Richard as Iron Guard, the supply chain captain is Guzin, and charge captain is Saladin, and knighthead as Flat. And if we go for more info page, this is his current his highest power. He has victory over 31,000 times. He only was defeated 510 times. He has 8.6 million dead, and I know all of those that are in T5 because Sid has T5 and he accelerated to T5 before our KVK1, and since then he's fighting only with T5. His scout times is low as 2,570 times. This is like very low scouts. Scouting times, I doubt that Sid doesn't like um, scouts, and his resource gathered is almost 800 million, and his resource assistance is just astonishing. It's 4 billion, and his alliance help times is 22,328. And as a surprise, in this episode, we have Sid with me here in the live, and he's with me in Discord. So let's jump to Discord and Salu Sid. How are you, Sid?
I am well, Star. How are you?
I'm good. So let's dig into the interview question, guys. I know they are very excited. So as my first question to you, Sid, how did you know about Rise of Kingdoms?
I've been gaming for a while. I've played online games, none made by Lilith, but a friend of mine was playing Rise of Kingdoms. I saw them playing it on their phone. They told me the name, and so I logged in and I play on my iPhone and found it and started playing.
Oh, interesting. So, what other games were you playing? And you said like you elaborated there were from not Lilith, but you didn't play any games from Lilith before?
Right. I hadn't played Lilith. I played, Rise of Civilization, which was I I believe a part of Lilith, maybe not, but I had played basically a lot of similar games, none that I thought or were as good as Rise of Kingdoms is, but I've been gaming for a very very long time online. Started with PCs and computers, and the phone. Once the game phones became as good as they are now. I started mostly playing on my phone.
This is amazing. So for my next question, feel free if you don't want to answer this because like it's like about how much you spent so far in the game, and how much like you spend like regularly, monthly or daily.
Okay. Yeah, this is probably a question I bet a lot of people are uncomfortable with. I am not, and I think that has to do with the idea that you know I earn all my money, I have enough of it, and it's all in relation to that. So I probably up until now, uh, actually I do know up until about a month ago, I think I had spent close to 45,000 US dollars.
Oh, this is like a huge amount of like money, but do you like do you think the amount you spent is worth it for the game that you have, like the value in the game? Is it worth it to spend
Good,
that
really,
much?
real, yeah, Star. That's actually a really good question. Um, I can honestly say, like I said earlier, I've been gaming for since gaming's been online. I've been gaming, so I'm not that young. Um, and there was probably a time when I was younger, I was gaming too much, and maybe spending too much money compared to the amount of money I had in the real world.
Yeah.
Um, Today, the last 10 years, um, the percentage of what I spend in the game is a very small amount to the income I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, it's reasonable and it makes sense because like you're not gonna spend what you have in real world to in a game, even if the game requires you to like to spend much, but you're not gonna cross the limit of what you have in favor of a game, which really make like a huge
And
sense to me.
I think Star, your first question, there's probably a lot of people that go with this. The thing you have to do is decide what it is you're getting from playing. And like you said, is it worth that? I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people that would say no way. Um, but like I said, is as long as it's not taking away from anything in your real world, um, and that includes being charitable and other things that I'm able to do in my life. And I'm married. My wife is well aware. Um, and so the game brings a lot of things for me. One of them is community. I enjoy the server I'm on. I like the people. If I didn't, I definitely would not have spent that money. So I think it's a combination of I like gaming, spending money makes the game a lot easier and a little more enjoyable. But it's really being in an environment with people that you want to be around, that connection part.
I see. So let's jump to the next question. And
Sure.
for my next question is, how long have you been playing Rise of Kingdom?
So this is my first time playing, and I started in the little calendar thing we just got said I've been playing for about 308 days, so a little less than that. I think about 300 days I've been playing.
Yeah, actually, this is amazing. So this is how old your account because you haven't playing Rise of Kingdom before. You don't have any other like accounts or something like this, right?
No, no. The only server I've ever been on is this one. The only accounts I've had are I have my main account and I have a farm account.
So yeah, so tell me the story behind of your account.
Oh, okay. So I started playing. The server was fairly new. I think it was 3 weeks old.
Uh-huh.
I knew nothing. I knew nothing about the game or what I was supposed to be doing. And luckily, I met two nice guys who had been playing. One was his name at the time was Jenny, but his real name was Hugan, and his real name was Alex. And
Oh, yeah.
he was a guy who had been playing for a very long time. He was extremely knowledgeable and very patient in explaining. And then another player was a guy named Tazzy, who the same thing was really knowledgeable about the game, was very helpful. And so I met those two, um, but I didn't even understand how the game worked. And so early on, I quickly got involved in battles with people and things that um, it turned out there were some bullies, bad people, and I partnered up with Jenny, Hugan, Alex, and Tazzy, and basically from that point forward, I joined them and we began building TE with a really nice young man, MC, who comes from, I believe, Italy. And MC was really smart and nice and very young. And he was the leader. But he listened. And so I just kind of followed along with them. Um, and then that they began explaining the game. I started playing it pretty often when I own my own companies, so I have the leisure to play when I choose. And they guided me. I made a bunch of mistakes early on, but they kind of helped me figure it out.
I see. Actually, I know the players you're talking together for so long time. Like with
Hmm.
Stasi, we spent the whole KVK one playing together.
Hmm.
Hugen too. Hugen like continued to play with us for KVK two, and
Hmm.
Desert two, MC, and like something because like they like Hugen and Taz they just quitted for quite some time now. I just
Right.
like wish they come back because like we had like an astonishing KVK, KVK2, KVK1, and
Yes.
KVK2 were so astonishing for us. Like I
Mm.
almost remember like in KVK1 it was like almost one versus three, and in
Yes.
KVK2 it was like one versus two, almost turned it to one versus three, and we were just like kicking, like
It-
we were
yeah.
doing an amazing job.
I think it's an important factor, and I think we learned our lesson in KVK three
Yeah,
because when you're playing against a group, and in one and in two, we were very connected to every player. People with little power, middle power, big power, and I think you can really credit uh, Hugan and Tazzy and MC about including everyone.
yeah,
Um, and in a lot of these games, sometimes people super overpowered can easily kind of run over everyone. And I
yeah,
think this game has done their best, or is trying to do their best, to kind of create it so that that isn't the case. And so I applaud Rise of Kingdoms for trying that. Um, but it still has enough, and heard enough stories from all the people who have come to this kingdom about what the kingdom was like that they left, where a small group of bully whales kind of abuse everyone. But if you notice, those kingdoms, they never succeed at KVK. They never succeed at the bigger events that you get to do and be a part of.
yeah,
And KVK was one of those things where I think it was about a month or two into it. And that's when I probably started really spending money, because somebody needed to have T5. And I think it was me and Hugan, and possibly Tazzy a little bit. And spending made that more accessible for us. But it also, it was really helpful, for me to realize that when we fought, if it wasn't for all of these other players in my alley, I would have been dead, and so would have Hugan. And I think Alex taught us that really well. He was a much better player than everyone, and he spent money like I did. but he was extremely, um, you know, really
Knowledgeable.
helpful to people.
Yeah, he's the like he was the most sourceful like player to us. And from here in this live stream, I'm shouting out to Alex. We miss you, bro, and I hope to see you soon in the game. Even if you
Uh,
just jump to our Discord Kingdom server and
yeah,
say hi and chill with the guys.
yeah. Well, I will let him know we became friends outside the game,
This is
even
amazing.
though we live in separate cities. And I communicate with him, um, and he still loves the game. It's just at this point he's needing to do a lot of other things, and he is playing a different game. I'm not going to say what game that is,
Okay.
um, but he also, I believe, left a legacy for a lot of us, on
He
how to
did.
play and the best way to get the best result, not just how to be a nice person. Um, and then KB came, which was a really good thing. It was I didn't understand it when you were after KVK. You're allowed to have people join your server from other places, and was really intimidated because when you're the biggest player on a server and you don't really know.
Favorite piece of equipment is the game so far.
So right now my favorite piece of equipment is the dagger.
The
It's an
dagger.
accessory.
Yeah.
um
It's so amazing
yeah,
accessory.
and then the rest would, I got to tell you, it's usually the weapons. Even though as a cav, the way the game's being kind of built right now, health is a lot more important. You know, but to me, the weapons, obviously, getting any of the sets is really good. But I learned after spending a ton of energy and money trying to get all the legendary that there are some good sets in the lower group, the epic group, that are are definitely worth until you're able to building and having.
Yeah. Amazing. This is so amazing, man. So if you would like give you give yourself a piece of advice that you wish you knew in the first, like at the beginning of playing the game,
Yeah.
what you will give advice to yourself, and the other half of the
Yeah.
question, what is like the one major regret or one of the major regrets you regret doing in Rise of Kingdoms?
So, that great question. The whole reason people should be listening to stuff like this in Rise of Kingdom, like I said, commanders have such a larger influence than you think when you first come on. Even if you're a spender, you aren't able to buy outright. You'll have a much greater advantage of other people. Um, but as far as maxing a commander, I think my biggest mistake was I didn't know, and I had all these commanders, and I just started maxing all of them, and I wasted so much, heads and experience books and so much stuff that it wasn't until I started asking people in my alley and smart people, like, what about this one? This is a good one. And they're like, no, he's crap. So I would definitely go back and say, stop, stop and ask someone, what's the best commander for this, and then look online, right? There's tons of information on YouTube. There's tons of information on websites. Go in, look at it, and don't develop a whole bunch. Like, I, even after having one or two of the right commanders, I started developing other commanders that I shouldn't have. And if you're going to focus on a troop type, I think it's economically smarter, in the first 90 days or 4 months of playing this from the beginning. I would focus on just a single troop type and develop everything around that troop, the commanders, the gear, everything.
Yeah, relating to this point, uh, like in my last video, I have interviewed a player from 1254. 1254 is one of the biggest Imperiums in the game. and
Hmm.
that player is a big spender with a 31 million power.
Yeah.
But he in the field, and like he's amazing. Like he fight, and he even fight with T4, not T5, and
Mm.
he's doing like an amazing job, you know. So
Yeah, there are players on our server this last KVK um, that I watched. Dope, uh, Agent, uh, a couple of other QR guys. They developed such good commanders and talents. They tweaked their talents as well. And they were doing as well as I was with legendary gear on my commanders who were talented, right? And T5. They just, I think, are such veteran players, and their commanders and the mix of commanders are so good. They were able to really hold their own. And so that taught me a real lesson about like, you can play this game if you stay very focused without spending a lot of money.
yeah, as a low spender, I can assure to people that they can do this.
Yeah.
So for my last question
Yeah.
is, how is your experience so far in Rise of Kingdoms? And as you're like, if you want to share your opinion about how, like, if you're gonna like, if you're right now, the Lilith team gonna listen to this, what what do you think, in your own opinion, will make Rise of Kingdom as like a better game for all the
Okay.
players?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Well, I can say that it's probably I've played the game. Um, I've played the game a lot more than I thought I was going to. I found a good balance now, and I think that is where I plan on staying around to play. Um, During KVK2, I was probably around 70 or 80 million power, or maybe higher, and I was zeroed. And
Wow,
I mean, to zero, zero, zero.
you have
I
to go
lost
zero.
5 million troops,
Oh, it
and
was painful.
and all my resources and everything, right? And and that was because I made a mistake. I didn't bubble. I didn't move off territory. Um, so rebuilding it to where it is now, um, I definitely had to decide, am I committed to the game? And I was. And like I said, I've become friends outside the game with people from all over the country or all over the world, like you in Egypt.
Yeah,
And you know, there's a connection part to this that I like. You know, obviously, I have real friends in the real world family and connections where I live, but the you know the game, we're a bunch of common people that kind of connect on this level. So to me, I think that's what Lilith has done right. um, I think they definitely created enough need to where you have to work together and you have to communicate, and so I think that's always good. I think the translate stuff is brilliant, even though obviously there are times it's not working, but for the amount of different languages I've seen on our server, it's pretty amazing. Um, and what should Lilith do? I don't know. I got to tell you, I wish there was an ability of for us to for people. Let's just say, not just free to play, but even people who are low spenders, the ability to grind to get some of the stuff that you're really not going to get unless you play for years. You know,
mm,
I think it would actually make more people stay playing and make you know, veterans stay. You know, so I think if they were able to create scenarios for people, and I understand that they're probably very afraid of that because you know the biggest issue around these games is the bots that farm and all of the that's been around since online games came on. World of Warcraft had $1 billion side industry that was fed uh, by people playing the game and then coming into the game and giving gear and resources on a black market. So it's a real thing. Um, but yeah, I think for me, Rise of Kingdoms is one of the better games. I think the challenges are good. Um, I don't like farming, but I do farm. I think multiple account thing is a little difficult. I almost think it would be fair if you'd let more than two accounts, maybe three or four, on a server. But I don't design games, so I'll leave it up to them.
Yeah, actually, your resource gathering stats tells that you hate gathering. Actually,
Yeah,
I hate gathering too. It's just like the most
yeah,
boring thing in the game. Like, oh
yeah,
man, just like Bane.
yeah, yeah.
Thank you, said. This was the end.
Thank you, Star. This was wonderful, and
Thank
I'll
you.
make sure once you post this to send it to Hugan.
Actually, it's live now on YouTube. He definitely gonna he can watch it every time, like whenever he likes. It's gonna be saved to the channel. Also,
Great,
after we're done with the podcast, I'll text you the link of the email, the link of the
great.
podcast, and hope you guys